talk about sustainability. Because if you keep on providing and no other person is saying we want to ensure that it moves forward, then you will be spending money and getting no result. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes. Mrs. Desalu, tell me, in terms of, I mean, we're getting a better picture of how different organizations, from your perspective, how is CSR practiced in Nigeria?
How is CSR practiced in Nigeria? Well, the two opinions we've heard earlier are more of the bigger picture. And I'd really like to look at it from the smaller picture. Go away from the blue chip to what I call the pink chip. The smaller businesses, which is more people on the streets. Most of the country is really small businesses. And what is it that small businesses can do? Because a lot of small businesses don't think that they have they need to practice corporate social responsibility because they're small. But there's so many things that small businesses can do to add value to the environment without necessarily having a big budget. Generator fumes, for example, there's pollution. And people are looking at, oh, what is it going to cost me to get a proper exhaust system to get this done? It's not usually a lot of money. But there's noise pollution. You could use a soundproof generator. These are the sort of things that small businesses work with. Housekeeping, just basic housekeeping. Waste disposal. People throw trash on the streets. We're talking about government not doing enough in those areas of responsibility, but there's a lot that small businesses themselves can do, both in leading an example and just making sure we live in a more hygienic environment. And there are things like, oh, just having telephone lines put in place, wiring is all over the place and the place is untidy. We can, as small businesses, ensure that things are done properly and at least take responsibility that if you don't have any water and the road is dug up, you take responsibility to make sure that it's put back. All of that is corporate social responsibility. Then there's local infrastructure support. A lot of communities have to build roads themselves, provide drainage. Those are things that little businesses can work in their community to add value with. We can support local schools, fund libraries, and then provide work opportunities for local interns. And generally, people need to give a lot more time to not-for-profit activities out of their business time, which is not necessarily putting out money, but putting out time to add value to the community and let us lead a better life. Just basically learning to add value in your own small way without the applause.
Dr. Suleiman, as I come to you, I'd like to revisit Craig's presentation. He gave us a rundown looking at what is a normative case for CSR and what is the business case. And I find that perhaps it's not an either-or, there's a gray line. And how can we merge both of these cases in our practice of CSR?
Well, I agree with you, it's not an either-or. Like Professor Craig says, is the right thing to do. But then you have to situate it in the context of the environment in which you operate. And you find that when we talk about corporate social responsibility in Nigeria, for example, you find that business and the people who work for businesses are elitist in the context of the environment in which they live, which means they are better educated, they are richer, better endowed than the community in which they operate. That in itself goes with some responsibility. You have an obligation to positively impact your community and raise people's standard of living. The other thing that makes corporate social responsibility almost an imperative in these parts, again, put it in the context of our environment, is what I call the inadequacies of government. Corporate social responsibility can be seen as a luxury in Europe where everything is provided. And you have to build a business case for doing what government ordinarily does. But in Nigeria, or at least in Africa, that is not the case. What you find, of course, is government is not as responsive, is not as accountable, and is not as capable as you have in the advanced countries, and therefore the things you ordinarily expect government to do are not done. And therefore you cannot operate in an environment, therefore, where there are a lot of deficits of the things that are required, either in infrastructure or social, and say, well, it's government responsibility, it's not your responsibility. And therefore, that takes me back to the point Professor Craig made about the license to operate. You almost have to obtain this license, and the way to obtain this license is by being socially responsible. I'm sure the experience of Shell and Chevron as well as the Niger Delta tells them that they've got to spend